Yeah, Julia, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show and talk about you and your journey. As we start all the shows, we'll have you introduce yourself, a little bit about maybe where you graduated from, where you're from, and what you're doing now. And then we'll fill in the gaps as we go.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for having me, Tanner. It's been a long story. I guess I started my undergrad at Penn State University. I did my graduate work at Emerson College. And then I was a speech pathologist. I finished my clinical fellowship in Boston. And after finishing my clinical fellowship and working about a year as a speech pathologist, I started taking travel therapy assignments.
Mhm.
This was back in 2010. Travel therapy kind of is a known term now, I would say. Generally, people at least know what it is. Back then, not so much. It was something that was a little bit more like secret, a little underground of the therapy world. So I started taking travel assignments back then before it was mainstream.
Mm.
And as the internet evolved, I got into this space where I started creating resources for people to take travel therapy assignments. So I call myself probably the first travel therapy influencer. I had the first travel therapy Facebook group, been in this space creating web materials, courses for a long time. And through that, and through taking travel therapy assignments, I also ended up launching my own digital marketing agency. So as I created resources online, I realized there was actually a big need in our market for strategy and help and consulting to help other people do the same thing with their businesses and their brands. So I run social media and do copywriting and other strategy and consulting as a social media consultant for other people now. So that's where I am.
That's exciting. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So let's start with at the beginning, you graduate speech path school and you get a job right out of school. What's that like? And then I think you said that you were there for a year and then you transitioned to doing travel therapy. So what caused all that to transpire?
So when I graduated, my first job was in a skilled nursing facility, which is fairly standard for a lot of medical people. I feel it's not probably anybody's dream job, but they hire new grads. So for me at that time, this was in 2009, the job was actually good. It was a salaried job, which almost they don't exist anymore. And it was at a skilled nursing facility that had a lot of ortho patients. So for me as a speech pathologist, I didn't have a ton of patients to see. It, as far as pay went, it didn't matter. I was never docked on pay. I was salaried. I could hang out on the computers all day or do random stuff if I wanted to. But it wasn't that challenging of a job. It was boring more than anything. I didn't have very many patients to see in a day, and my coworkers all did. They were all really busy.
Mhm.
So that was actually why I decided to do travel therapy. I was like, I'm bored at this job. And all I wanted to do was travel. I never had any money going through grad school to take extended trips or spring breaks. So I finally had some money, not a lot as a therapist, but some, enough that I wanted to travel. And I was trying to make the most of the 14 paid time off days I had a year. So
Mhm.
in working that job, that's when a lot of my coworkers, who were about 10 years older than me at the time, were all saying, do travel therapy. Because this particular SNP actually had a lot of travelers come in. I was working with some. And they were saying, you might as well do travel therapy. Why are you here? There's really nothing for your career to grow here. You either have to get a job in a bigger place or a hospital, do something different, or go out and travel to expand your career, expand your skills, take time off. So that's what landed me into travel. My initial goal was to essentially do what I do now, which is work as little as possible and take as much time off as possible to travel. But it took me a while to get to the point where I could take really extended amounts of time off with travel because it takes time to build up money as a traveler and stuff like that. But that's how I got into it.
Okay. You touched on something that I'm real curious about. And you were talking about it took a while for you to have the income or finances to travel more freely whenever you want. Is that actually about building up this website, this travel website, and having it generate some passive income for you so you can take more time off? Is that kind of what you're referring to there?
Well, I was referring to just being able to stack travel assignments and make money and then be able to take time off. So
Okay.
one of the nice things about travel is it tends to pay well, not always. Each assignment definitely pays differently. But in the beginning, my goal was, I could work an assignment, then I could take a lot of time off. What I didn't realize back then was there's a lot of costs that come with taking an assignment. And I was also putting a lot of money towards my student loans. So I thought I'd be able to basically in 3 months meet all these financial goals, which they weren't obtainable, but I thought they were. So it took me a while to realize, okay, if I want to prioritize taking time off in travel, I have to work. Usually I worked 2 to 3 back-to-back contracts a year. I specifically extended contracts versus starting a new job because you actually save a lot of expenses by just staying at the same place and not traveling somewhere else. It adds up. All the little expenses add off. So I'd work at one place maybe 6 months, 9 months, maybe even a year, and then be able to meet enough of the financial goals I had that I could take some time off. So this was the last time before I took off, before even starting the website or anything like that. I think I worked 9 months in a row, then took off 6 to 8 weeks. And that was about my limit as far as just being able to handle it financially.
Okay. And you took on this adventure of doing travel therapy. How long were you doing that travel therapy for? And when did the online blog and kind of media start with your travel ventures?
So the media started heavily between 2014 and 2015. So about 4 to 5 years into travel.
Okay.
And that was actually about the same time that I really started to get the travel hang of things, that I felt like I was in this cool place where I would work a couple months, that I would travel a couple months. So I was gaining some momentum and followers from that online as well. This is a pretty cool lifestyle too, as well as just providing general resources about travel therapy.
Hmm.
Then that's when the travel blogging came in. And this is maybe a dark turn to the story, because those months that I used to take off and travel the world freely for fun, and I went to Spanish immersion programs for a month. I went to Central America, Europe, all over. Instead of doing that anymore, I spent those months basically just staring at my computer, working for free. So that kind of incomes the dark turn of the story. I traded traveling for fun to expand my digital skills.
For sure. Okay. And so like 2014, 15 is around the time this starts, this online kind of entrepreneurial blog website. How long were you doing that and travel therapy at the same time?
Great. You could say I still am. I took
Okay.
my last travel therapy assignment about a year and a half ago,
Hmm.
and I'm definitely not opposed to taking one in the future if it could fit. But I am pretty busy with the online stuff now that I don't think it would be possible to work a job.
Okay. And because not only do you have the travel website now,
Mhm.
you also have your online copyright, marketing, all of these kind of online skills that you've built that you provide services to other people.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. So that kind of leads into a natural question. What is your kind of schedule or day-to-day life like, or your week like?
Now it's all focused on pretty much working from home, and it's pretty flexible. I honestly don't have a lot of work. I could, if I wanted to, be more like the 4-hour work week guy. I don't have a lot going on. I feel like I'm always pushing myself to do more.
Mhm.
So always pushing myself to take on new clients, learn new social media skills, create new content, film new videos. So it can be busy. It cannot be busy. I still get up most days around like 6 o'clock, more or less, do some exercise, walk my dog, then read emails, figure out what I have to do for the day, usually doing some sort of writing at my computer or creating graphics to post. Do that for a couple hours and then call it quits. I don't work too hard.
Sounds pretty great.
Yeah.
Some follow-up questions are, it sounds like you loved this, that you just never really considered going full-time anywhere else. Because normally there's a pretty big pain point in a lot of the journeys that I talk to with people on the podcast. And there's this, and this is why I decided to make this big kind of career or lifestyle shift. It sounds like you're unique in the case that it's like you're encouraged to do it and you just stuck with it. I would love to hear maybe some of the pros and cons of doing travel therapy versus being stationary at a brick and mortar business.
There's so many different kind of pros and cons of travel therapy for different people. It all comes down to really what your goals are. There can be a lot of money. You can have assignments paying you per week over $3,000 a week.
Mhm.
But the con of that is that assignment might not be in a great location. It might not be something you enjoy. So there can be, or they just might not come up a lot. The last assignment I took, I think I was making about $2,500 a week. So you can, and that's after taxes. So you can make a lot of money. You can bank money. You can pay off bills, meet financial goals, take time off. You can also, unfortunately, you can come into debt. The first year I was traveling, rates were lower then. I was making maybe $1,400 a week after taxes. And I hit some bad financial bumps. This was like pre-Airbnb being popular, pre a lot of short-term housing websites. I ended up getting caught up in a lease I couldn't break, owed $4,000 to a housing complex.
Man.
I left that assignment completely in the red. I didn't even know what in the red meant until I saw my bank account actually red. That's like, it's black when it's a positive number. It's red when it's negative. So like that first assignment just killed me. Like there's definitely ways to lose money as well. Your contracts can get cut at any time, which is what happened to me. The contract got cut. They hired somebody perm. I couldn't get out of a housing lease. So there's these risks you have to take on. Also, you have to, in my opinion, enjoy the travel, enjoy the adventure of it. That's a big pro. I love going to new places, love exploring. If you're more like a homebody, you don't like leaving your family, but you're doing travel, say, for the money, it can be tough. You can be isolated, feel alone. Unfortunately, anybody could end up in a really bad job. So travelers are used to fill jobs that can't get filled by local staff. So you're rolling a dice in some ways. When you get good at interviewing, you can really vet out the assignments on your own, but sometimes you can just get in a really bad job. Other times, the positive is you can land in great jobs and jobs that you really couldn't even get perm, like some of the big hospital systems across the US, like Stanford Health and Palo Alto, and other big ones that it might be hard to get a perm job there. They use travelers, and it's a way you could get into a really great hospital system and learn from some amazing people. So pros and cons everywhere travel. I think it just depends on what you're looking for and the risk and adventure you're willing to take.
I love all that. Thanks for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
I got to ask, on the website, what can viewers expect? Or I'm going to obviously have your web link or your website link in the show notes. If they go there, what are some of the resources there that help them solve some of these travel questions and issues?
So the website, it's thetravelingtraveler.com, and it'll walk you through kind of everything you need to become a traveling therapist. On one hand, I have a paid course that's about 6 hours of material that really hand by hand walks you through everything you need to know, things you didn't think about, all the things. But then on the website, the free side, we have so many blogs and YouTubes. For every informational blog, there's generally a YouTube attached to it with a video on how basically answering all your questions. how to find a job, how to find an agency, how to find health insurance, housing, considerations you might not think about for travel, the pros and cons. So there's a wealth of free information there. There's also a job board, which is growing, where you can actually go to my website and look for jobs on it. So right now I'm hosting all the jobs of one agency and about to put the second agency on it, working on getting a couple more on there. So you can actually go to my website and find jobs too.
That's awesome. It sounds like it's a one-stop shop for all this stuff.
Mhm.
I'm curious, how long did it take for the traveling traveler to start generating income for you?
That's a good question. I guess it depends on what you consider income. So any traveler, anybody out there can refer another traveler to their agency. And if that traveler works for their agency that they're working for, they take a job, they can get a referral bonus.
Mm.
So I'm going to put that aside because that's something anybody can do with or without a website. I would say once I had the website running and I hooked up maybe Amazon affiliates, I might have made $1 for within my first year or something. Maybe my first official year in business, I made maybe $35 in affiliates off of the website from different places.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is because I hear it takes for most of these online entrepreneur businesses to come out is like 2-3 years or more before things are built up and traffic's going, and then these affiliates kick in. Has that been similar to what you've experienced and yourself, or what do you think?
I think it depends on the social media presence and what kind of the brand, what they're selling.
Mhm.
So I analyze social media a lot, obviously, for my agency. And I constantly see like influencers, not so much in the therapy space, but in just general spaces that can come out of nowhere and like overnight create huge affiliate revenue. Not even off of a website, just off of the link in bio. They just have a TikTok channel, Instagram channel, but they're selling affiliates over those sources. I do think you could be an overnight success, or maybe it's not so much like overnight, but within a year, I think you could be successful. I think it can easily take 2 to 3 years for a lot of brands to see some revenue come in. Then on the flip side, there's people who can never make any income. So it's not to say that if
True.
you give it 2 or 3 years, it's gonna roll in, but there's also that. And I think a lot of it comes down to what I said in the beginning, which is the brand, the branding, and what they're selling. Are you selling the right affiliates through the right copywriting and right voice of your website?
Nice. Yes, I love it. Everything that you're saying, it totally makes sense. So with your services, do you do some of like business strategy or SEO strategy, like that kind of stuff, to maybe see where some of these potential revenue opportunities are within an online business?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm focusing mostly on the search engines within Instagram and TikTok. So there's more and more research coming out that younger generations, including myself, are using Instagram and TikTok search over Google search. I find myself doing it all the time. I just moved and I'm moving again, the nomad life. And I find myself searching for everything, whether it's like a haircut place, dog grooming, ice cream on Instagram, because you want to see the pictures versus Google.
Mhm.
So I've been putting some more strategy into those search engines, but I also do Google, which can be it can be easier or harder, but I also write SEO boosted content and work on Google strategy too.
Okay. For those that don't know what SEO stands for, it's search engine optimization. Basically, in a nutshell, is the better SEO you have, the higher rank you get on Google, and social, and the more kind of views you get because you're getting more exposure. Would you say that's right, Julia?
Yeah. And you have to think about if you're putting something in Google or Instagram, what's coming up first, because that's what's on the first page. So that's going to be most likely where you're going to click to make a sale. And Google's really come to the point where their first pages, it costs like almost just so much money for most people to get on those first pages because there has to be so much strategy behind getting there. Not in our industry so much. We can still do more natural ways. But yeah, it's a very high, like agencies charge high amounts to do Google SEO because it can be a very hard thing to do.
For sure. Makes sense. I gotta ask, because I've been curious as well with traveling, what is the best way to do the whole living part? Do you do the Airbnb? Do you get a camper, like a fifth wheel you haul around everywhere? Or do you do a van life thing? Like what are like some pros and cons, and what have you found to be the best for you?
Again, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to that. It's what you want to do. I've never done van life. I've never done RV. It's always seemed like too much work for me if something goes wrong. And especially with the RV campers, there's not a lot of people think you save money by doing an RV, but they're actually quite expensive for the loans for the RVs, and the sites that you park them in are actually expensive. They can be like $1,200 and $1,400 a month. So I like to do basically the Airbnb route. I go mostly through a website called Furnish Finder, which specializes in travel nurses. They specialize in what they call midterm rentals, which is that 3 to 9 month period. I find most of my housing over their website. I'm actually in a Furnish Finder unit now, staying here a little bit. So I like their website, but Airbnb is also an option too.
Cool. I love that. Thanks for the resource, the Furnish Finder. Man, this is great. This is so cool having you come on and talk about this stuff, because it's something too that I've been interested in a long time, and I'm glad there's other people doing it. And you're the second person I've talked to that actually did the same. They did the Airbnb thing, and they saw the drawbacks, I think, of the fifth wheel or the camper RV, similar to what you said. Like it costs a lot to rent a space. And you also have to pay for a vehicle to actually tow this thing around, which usually is a gas guzzler kind of thing. And then also for the van life, a lot of people, if they don't necessarily have a shower in the van, they do it in the gyms. Like they have a gym membership and they have to shower there, and they usually have a compost toilet they have to deal with. So there's some really big lifestyle changes that actually go with the van life. And it sounds like, I would say, based on what I'm hearing, the easiest way to, I think, to ease into it and keep somewhat of a similar normal lifestyle that we're used to is definitely renting out the Airbnb or the rooms. So yeah, that's awesome. Oh, what do you feel it takes for someone to be like an online entrepreneur, or maybe even a freelancer, or create their own marketing agency, any and all that?
You definitely need to work at it and have patience and not give up. That's first of all. You need to create your skills, which I think any of us can create freelancer skills in some area, whether it's writing, copywriting, editing, graphic designing. I think there's skills that we could all learn online or through other places. So you need to learn the skills. Then you need to have patience and hard work ethic, because getting customers and clients is going to be the hard thing. And that's why I think it's so important to do that work on the side as you're working as a therapist, whether it's a travel therapist or a full-time therapist, because the fluctuations of money is a really hard part of freelancing.
Ooh, I like that. Okay. What is a failure that you're comfortable and open with sharing, like an experience that you really had a difficult time and maybe can be considered a failure, but you overcame, and learned from it along this journey that you've had graduating from SLP school to getting where you are now?
There, there have been so many times I've put money into things that it just ended up seeming like throwing money away. And it happens, like whether it's on somebody you hire that's a contractor, like you've hired the wrong person, or I last year I invested a lot of money in an idea I had to grow out my marketing agency in a different way. And that ended up not taking shape. So I think you have to just make your mistakes and learn from them and go forward. And I think a lot of successful entrepreneurs that you think are successful have had a lot of failures because you don't get to be really successful without taking risks.
Hmm.
So I think you're constantly like taking a risk and maybe winning or losing, taking a risk, winning or losing, but you have to move forward. Of course, and you're always checking yourself, is this worth taking this step forward or should I stop? So there's that part of it too. But yeah, just not letting your failures bring you down and moving forward is important.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the realest comments I think we've had on the show for those in the business owner entrepreneurial space is we've talked about failures or mistakes being part of the journey, but the reality is being a business owner or entrepreneur is you are going to make financial mistakes along the way. Like it's just part of it. And as you pointed out, hiring somebody that maybe wasn't what you thought, I've done it too. And it's just kind of part of the process and you learn as you go and you don't make those mistakes again. And it's just paying to play. I've heard you have to pay to play this financial entrepreneurial role. And it's just part of it. So yeah, I completely agree for sure. What would you say you've realized from this journey or life awareness maybe you've gained or something like that from SLP school to where you are now?
I feel almost like every interaction we have has some degree of marketing in it, which I've landed in marketing. Everything we do as therapists, or a lot of it is trying to change our patients' like behavior, convincing somebody who doesn't exercise to exercise. For me, convincing somebody who might have had like bad habits in the past with eating or swallowing to change them to swallow safer, stuff like that. Like so much of, I think the communications I've learned in therapy has helped me be a better marketer. And I've realized so much as a marketer, so much of what I'd done in the past is marketing. So I feel like that's been an interesting connection I've made over the years.
For sure. Absolutely. It's the skill sets that we learn as therapists and the interpersonal skills that we learn are extremely valuable. I think it's fair now from everybody I've talked to that it's fair to say that no matter what you go into next, there's something that's going to be valuable that you gain being a therapist that can be used in whatever that is you're going to be doing next in your life.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, I meet so many therapists who have what seems like low self-confidence in their abilities, where they think they're in this box. I am a therapist. I can only write therapist on my resume. I can only talk about being a therapist in job interviews. And those are the only skills I have. When in reality, they have so many more skills that are transferable to so many different jobs, but they're not seeing it that way. And then in turn, they're not marketing themselves that way. And they're not like manifesting jobs into reality that could happen for them. I think if everyone really takes a look at all of the skills we have, they transfer to a lot of other positions if you're willing to put the work in to modify your resume, modify your interview and all that.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree. What would you share with others who, may be struggling with making a career change or they're not happy where they are now and they're looking to do something different, maybe not sure where to start? Because a lot of people, when in the field, they get burnt out or taken advantage of, not compensated for their time and what they're putting in. And it's just, man, this really isn't the career that I thought it was going to be. What am I going to do with my life?
Yeah, For those people, I think just start networking, talking to everybody like in any way you can and seeing where they work, what they do. Sometimes you don't even know what your neighbors do. What do you do? Are you hiring? I meet so many people all the time who get jobs just by networking and telling people I'm looking for jobs. And I'm just talking about in your own community. And also something I've done a lot over the years is just look at Indeed or other job boards online, like for my local community, see who's hiring and what the jobs are and what the skills are for those jobs. So I've actually never applied for any in-person jobs in my community, although you totally can. But I've always looked at what they've listed as like the recommended skills. And if I didn't have those skills, I worked on getting them if it's a job that I was interested in. So for me, it would be like marketing or social media. I worked on building the skills of what top companies are essentially looking for. And I ended up building my own business. But if I didn't, I would be applying to literally all the jobs I could on Indeed. And I always say, if my business closes down, if I end up failing, or if I just want to get back to W-2 work, I'm just going to be applying to hundreds of jobs. Like eventually, luck of the odds are somebody's going to take me, but I'd just be applying to jobs day and night.
For sure. Yeah, it totally makes sense. Do you see yourself keeping your speech path license and in your back pocket as a fallback, or is it something that in the future you're thinking about letting go?
A hard question. I don't know the answer to it. I have it for now, and I think I'm just going to reassess every year and see where I am, see where speech pathology is. A lot of the reasons I don't want to work in speech pathology are probably I feel a lot of therapists can relate to this, but we don't have research to back up what we're doing. We have unrealistic productivity expectations. We're not getting respect from other professionals. I think I'd have to evaluate where am I in my own career, and then where's the whole field in general? Has it gotten any better, or is it also just declining as a field too?
Completely agree. Great points there. Do you have any book recommendations for Rehab Rebel listeners who may be in that group where they're looking to transition to something different but not sure where, or in the group that maybe they want to go and be an entrepreneur or business owner or start their own health practice?
I don't have any book recommendations for the kind of not knowing where they are category. That would be a good one to find some stuff on. I do recommend The Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins, which is just a general financial literacy book. And it gives you the tools of how to build up like your retirement funds and investments to be able to walk away from work and live off your investments. I think that's a good read for everybody, especially if you're thinking about changing careers, because it's okay, how can I have a financial cushion behind me?
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as more like getting into social media or marketing, I love anything by Donald Miller. Do you read him? The story brand guy?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Your questions reminded me of his books. Yeah, so Donald Miller writes a ton of marketing books, a ton of business books. He's known for the concept of the story brand, which is a marketing copywriting skill to use. So he's one of my favorites. I love Cashvertising. That's a book about writing good advertising copy. It's older. It's a bit meant for print media, but a lot of the concepts carry over to the web. Yeah, there's anything by Gary Vee is really good. Crushing It, Crush It. Yeah, all those books are good for social media and marketing.
For sure. That sounds great. Julia, I've really loved having you on the show. You're just a wealth of knowledge and obviously a success at your online travel, thetravelingtraveler.com, and now your marketing business. So congratulations. That's awesome. It's super exciting. Would love to have you on in the future as well, and or follow back up, or maybe even have you be on like a subject matter expert for marketing, for example. We could do like something like that in the future. So yeah, would love to have you on, and thank you for taking the time to be on here and talk to everybody.
Thanks for having me. It's so fun.
Absolutely.